Your sister will be taking over as CEO of Mitchell Vineyards starting next month," my father announced, swirling his wine glass with the practiced air of someone who had just discovered wine culture 6 years ago. "She has the elegant touch this business needs now." I stood in his office, the same office where I'd spent countless nights poring over financial documents, saving our family's failing farm from bankruptcy. The irony wasn't lost on me. The wine he was drinking came from the very vines I'd planted when everyone said it couldn't be done. My name is Sarah Mitchell, and at 32, I had transformed our family's dying farm into one of the most successful wineries in the Pacific Northwest. But apparently, that wasn't enough. "Jessica has been taking some online courses in wine appreciation," my father continued, as if that somehow equaled my decade of hands-on experience. "And she has the right connections. Her fiance's family knows everyone who's anyone in the wine world." I watched him, noting how he couldn't quite meet my eyes. Jessica, my younger sister, had spent the last 6 years jumping between careers: yoga instructor, lifestyle influencer, and now, apparently, wine connoisseur. Meanwhile, I had been here, hands in the soil, learning everything from vine cultivation to fermentation, turning our debt-ridden farm into a $50 million business. "The board meeting is on Friday," he added, still studying his wine glass. "We'll make the official announcement then." "The board?" I kept my voice steady. "You mean the board I helped you establish? The one that exists because I convinced our investors to take a chance on us." He waved his hand dismissively. "Sarah, you've always been too technical. This business needs a fresh face, someone who understands the luxury market. Jessica has that natural elegance we need." I thought about the early days when I first proposed converting our failing apple orchards into vineyards. Everyone had laughed: my father, our neighbors, even Jessica. "Wine grapes? In this climate?" They'd scoffed. But I had done my research, spent years studying viticulture, and worked with agricultural experts to analyze our soil composition. I had mortgaged my own house to fund the initial conversion when no bank would touch us. I had worked 18-hour days, learning every aspect of the wine business from the ground up. When disease threatened our first crop, I had spent nights in the vineyard monitoring the vines and implementing innovative solutions that would later become industry standards. "Does Jessica know anything about our precision farming system?" I asked. "The one that's reduced our water usage by 40% and increased our yield quality." My father shifted uncomfortably. "She'll learn. Besides, that's why we have you. You can teach her everything you know. You'll still be involved, of course." We're thinking. Head of production, under Jessica's leadership naturally. Under Jessica's leadership, the words hit like a physical blow. My sister, who had never set foot in our fermentation facility, who couldn't tell the difference between our award-winning Cabernet Sauvignon and a bottle of grocery store wine, would be my boss. I looked around the office, taking in the awards lining the walls, awards I had earned, innovations I had implemented, recognition for turning a failing family farm into one of the most respected wineries in the region. Each one felt like a silent witness to this betrayal. "Dad," I said quietly, "do you remember where we were 6 years ago?" He frowned, clearly not wanting to revisit those days. "We were 3 months away from losing everything," I continued. "The bank was ready to foreclose. You were ready to sell to that developer who wanted to build condos. Do you remember what Jessica said then?" His frown deepened. We both knew what Jessica had said. "Just sell it, Dad. This place is a money pit anyway." I never wanted to be a farmer. "That's not fair," he protested. She was young then. She's matured. She understands the value of family legacy now. Family legacy. Another irony. The legacy he was so concerned about only existed because I had refused to let it die. "And what do the investors think about this decision?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. Our major investors, the ones who had backed my vision when everyone else said it was impossible, wouldn't be happy about this. "Well," he hedged, "we haven't discussed it with them yet. But they'll understand. Jessica has an MBA. An online MBA she had gotten 6 months ago, after her lifestyle blog failed to take off. Meanwhile, I had years of practical experience, industry recognition, and a track record of success that had turned us into an industry leader." "I see," I said, keeping my voice neutral. "And the expansion plans? The new sustainable farming initiative? The distribution deals I've been negotiating?" Jessica has some exciting new ideas. He brightened, clearly relieved to move away from the investor question. She's thinking we should focus more on the luxury market, wine tastings with influencers, exclusive club memberships, that sort of thing. I thought about our loyal customers, the relationships I had built with local restaurants and retailers, the community we had created around our wines. Jessica's exciting new ideas would undo years of careful brand building. Well, I said, standing up. I suppose you've made your decision. Sarah, he called as I reached the door. Don't be difficult about this. Jessica needs this opportunity. You've already proven yourself. You can afford to step back. I turned back to him, studying the man who had taught me everything about farming, about persistence, about never giving up on what you believe in. Somewhere along the way, he'd have forgotten those lessons himself. You're right, Dad, I said quietly. I have proven myself, and I can afford to step back. The look of relief on his face almost made me laugh. He thought I was accepting this, falling in line like I always had, being the responsible daughter who put family peace above everything else. What he didn't know was that I had seen this coming months ago when Jessica had suddenly started showing up at board meetings, asking questions about our operations, bringing her fiancé along to learn about the family business. I had started making preparations then, quiet conversations with industry contacts, careful documentation of all my innovations and processes, contingency plans that were now about to pay off. I'll help with the transition, I said. After all, we wouldn't want Jessica to feel overwhelmed. My father beamed, completely missing the edge in my voice. I knew you'd understand. Family has to stick together, right? Family, right. That evening, as I drove home through our vineyards, I watched the sunset paint the grapevines in shades of gold and purple. These vines were my life's work, every row a testament to years of dedication and innovation. I'd fought disease, drought, and skeptics to make them thrive. I pulled over at my favorite spot, a hilltop overlooking the entire estate. From here, you could see everything: the original farmhouse where I'd grown up, the state-of-the-art winery facility I'd designed, the visitor center that welcomed thousands of tourists each year. I pulled out my phone and made a call. Marcus, it's Sarah Mitchell. Remember that conversation we had a few months ago? I think I'm ready to discuss those opportunities now. Marcus, the owner of one of the largest wine distributors in the country, had been trying to get me to consult for his other vineyards for years. I'd always declined, too focused on building Mitchell Vineyards. Sarah, wonderful timing. Still interested in that property in Sonoma? I smiled, watching the lights come on in the winery below. Very interested. And Marcus? I have some ideas about improving their production methods. After hanging up, I made one more call, this time to my lawyer, Emma. They did exactly what we expected, I said when she answered. Time to implement phase 1. All the documentation is ready, Emma replied. Your patents, your process innovations, everything's legally protected. They can have the winery, but your intellectual property stays with you. I'd spent the last 6 months patenting every innovation I'd developed: our precision farming system, our specialized fermentation process, our sustainable pest control methods. Mitchell Vineyards could keep using them, for a price. Looking down at the empire I'd built, I felt a strange mix of sadness and excitement. This wasn't how I'd imagined things would go, but maybe it was for the best. Sometimes you have to lose something to gain something better. My phone buzzed with a text from Jessica. So excited to work together, sis. I have so many amazing ideas for rebranding. Thinking pink labels, more Instagram-worthy bottles. I didn't reply. Let her dream about pink labels and influencer parties. She had no idea what was coming. The next morning, I arrived at the office early as usual. The winery was quiet, the first workers just arriving to begin the day's operations. Every person I passed greeted me by name. I knew their stories, their families, had hired many of them myself. In my office, I began gathering the files I'd need for the transition. Technical documentation, operational procedures, contact lists, all carefully edited to remove my proprietary innovations. The basic procedures would remain, but the advanced methods that had made us industry leaders, those belonged to me now. My phone buzzed again. A message from Marcus: property papers ready. Meeting with Sonoma team set for next week. They're excited about your ideas. Everything was falling into place. I learned long ago that the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about getting better. Jessica could have Mitchell Vineyards, but I was about to show everyone what I could build when I wasn't constrained by family politics. The board meeting was scheduled for Friday. 3 days to set everything in motion. 3 days to prepare for the look on their faces when they realized exactly what they were losing. I smiled, remembering something my mother used to say before she passed. Sometimes life's biggest opportunities come disguised as its biggest disappointments. She was right. This wasn't an ending, it was a beginning. And I was ready to write the next chapter on my own terms. Friday morning dawned clear and bright, the kind of day that usually filled me with excitement about the vineyard's potential. Today, however, that familiar surge of passion was tempered by what I knew was coming. I dressed carefully, choosing a tailored charcoal suit that projected authority. No flashy jewelry or designer labels like Jessica favored, just clean, professional lines that said I meant business. As I fastened my mother's vintage watch around my wrist, I thought about how she would have handled this situation. She always told me to play the long game. The board meeting was scheduled for 10 a.m. in our main conference room. I arrived early as usual, setting up my materials with practiced efficiency. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, I could see the morning sun illuminating our prized vineyard, the rows of vines stretching toward the horizon like soldiers standing at attention. Board members began filtering in, serious men and women who had invested in my vision years ago, when it was nothing but ambitious plans and detailed projections. They greeted me warmly with the respect I had earned through years of delivering results. At 9:58, Jessica breezed in, wearing a dress that probably cost more than most of our workers made in a month. She was clutching a rose gold laptop and what appeared to be a mood board. Her fiancé Blake trailed behind her, though he had no official role at the company. "Sarah," she exclaimed, air-kissing near my cheek. "Love the suit. Very practical." I noticed our lead investor, Margaret Chen, raise an eyebrow at Jessica's tone. Margaret had been one of my earliest supporters, understanding the potential in my innovative farming methods when others saw only risk. My father arrived last, looking nervous despite his attempt at a confident stride. "Good morning, everyone," he began, taking his place at the head of the table. "We have some exciting announcements today about the future of Mitchell Vineyards." I sat quietly, watching the scene unfold. Jessica had positioned herself prominently, already pulling up what looked like a PowerPoint presentation filled with flowing script fonts and stock photos of wine glasses. "As you know," my father continued, "Mitchell Vineyards has grown beyond our wildest expectations." He glanced at me briefly before focusing on Jessica. "And with this growth comes the need for fresh perspective, new energy. That's why I'm pleased to announce that my daughter Jessica will be taking over as CEO, effective immediately." The room fell silent. I could see shock and confusion on the board members' faces. Margaret Chen's expression had turned to stone. "Mr. Mitchell," she said, her voice carrying the weight of millions in investment capital, "could you explain the reasoning behind this decision?" "Of course," my father replied, though his confidence wavered slightly. "Jessica brings fresh insights, new connections. She has an MBA and understands modern marketing." "And what about Sarah?" Margaret interrupted. "The woman who turned this failing farm into a $50 million operation. The one whose innovations have been featured in every major wine publication." Jessica jumped in, her voice bright with rehearsed enthusiasm. "Oh, Sarah will still be involved. She'll be head of production, actually. I have so many exciting plans, influencer partnerships, luxury branding, exclusive events. We're thinking of changing our whole aesthetic. More aspirational." I watched Margaret's face darken. Our other board members were exchanging concerned glances. This was the moment I had been waiting for. "Actually," I said, speaking for the first time, "I have some announcements of my own." All eyes turned to me as I opened my folder and began distributing documents. "What you're looking at," I explained calmly, "is a list of patents and proprietary processes that I've developed over the past 6 years. Our precision farming system, our specialized fermentation process, our sustainable pest control methods, all registered under my name." My father's face paled as he scanned the documents. "What are you talking about? These belong to Mitchell Vineyards." "No, Dad," I corrected gently. "These innovations belong to me. I developed them, documented them, and legally protected them. Mitchell Vineyards has been using them under my implied consent as CEO. That consent expires with my position." Jessica's perfectly glossed mouth fell open. But you can't just." I can, I interrupted, and I have. Mitchell Vineyards can continue using these methods, of course, for a licensing fee. Market rate for comparable agricultural innovations is quite substantial these days. The room erupted into chaos. Board members were flipping through the documents, my father was sputtering protests, and Jessica's face had turned an interesting shade of red. "This is ridiculous," she exclaimed. "Daddy, tell her she can't do this." But Margaret Chen was nodding slowly, a hint of approval in her expression. "Actually, she can. And from an investor's perspective, this raises serious concerns about the proposed leadership change." I stood up, smoothing my suit jacket. "I have one more announcement," I said, pulling out another set of documents. "I've accepted a position as CEO of Sonoma Valley Ventures. They're launching an innovative new winery project, implementing all of my patented processes. Our projected revenue for the first year is $30 million. The silence that followed was deafening. "You're leaving," my father finally managed, his voice small. "You made it clear that my role here is finished," I replied evenly. "I'm simply ensuring that my innovations are properly valued and protected." Margaret Chen cleared her throat. "Mr. Mitchell, I move to postpone any leadership changes pending a full board review. Given these developments, we need to reassess the company's direction." Other board members quickly seconded the motion. Jessica's mood board sat forgotten on the table, her dreams of influencer parties and pink labels crumbling before her eyes. "Sarah," my father started, but I held up a hand. "Save it, Dad. I'll help with the transition for a consulting fee. I suggest you review the licensing proposal with your lawyers. The terms are quite reasonable, considering the market value of the technologies involved." I gathered my things and walked to the door, pausing only briefly. "Oh, and Jessica, those vintage vines in the north field need copper treatment next week. But you do that, right?" The look of panic that crossed her face said everything. As I walked through the winery, saying goodbye to employees who had become like family, I felt a strange mix of emotions. This place had been my life for so long. Every vine, every building, every process bore my fingerprints, but sometimes growth requires leaving familiar ground. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. "Sonoma team is thrilled. We've secured the additional acreage you requested. When can you start?" I looked back at the Mitchell Vineyard sign, remembering the day we'd unveiled it after our first successful harvest. The memory didn't hurt as much as I'd expected. "I'll be there Monday," I replied. Time to plant some new vines. In my car, I found a voicemail from Margaret Chen. "Brilliant move, Sarah. The board is in an uproar. Your father and sister are about to learn some hard lessons about value. When you're ready to start your own label, call me. I know some investors who'd be very interested." I smiled, starting the engine. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying what others have. It's about building something better of your own. Jessica could have Mitchell Vineyards. I had bigger fields to cultivate. As I drove away, I caught a glimpse of my father and Jessica in my rearview mirror, standing outside the conference room looking shell-shocked. They'd wanted a leadership change. Well, they were about to get one, just not the one they'd expected. The next chapter was mine to write, and I had a feeling it was going to be vintage. 3 months into my new role at Sonoma Valley Ventures, the contrast couldn't have been more striking. While Mitchell Vineyards struggled with their first harvest without my expertise, I stood in my new vineyard, watching as workers installed our cutting-edge irrigation system. The morning sun painted the California hills in shades of gold, so different from the misty mornings I'd known back home. But different didn't mean worse, it meant opportunity. The soil here had potential I could only dream of back at Mitchell Vineyards. My phone buzzed with a text from Emma, my lawyer. "Mitchell Vineyards missed their first licensing payment. Your father's requesting a meeting." I wasn't surprised. Without my innovations, their production costs had skyrocketed. Traditional farming methods weren't just less efficient, they were more expensive. "Schedule it for next week," I replied. "Send the late payment notice as discussed." Another message popped up, this one from Margaret Chen. "Sarah, just left Mitchell's board meeting. It's chaos. Jessica's luxury rebranding has alienated half our distributors. Your father's asking about borrowing against future harvests. Time to discuss that private label?" I smiled, remembering the conversation I'd had with Margaret last week. Her investment group was interested in backing my own wine label. a premium brand that would combine my agricultural innovations with true luxury level quality. Not the superficial glamour Jessica had envisioned, but the real thing. Working on the business plan now, I texted back. Should have projections ready by month's end. My assistant, Maya, approached with a tablet displaying our latest soil analysis results. The mineral content is even better than we hoped, she said excitedly. Your modified cultivation method is already showing results. I nodded, studying the data. The new techniques I developed were performing beyond expectations. While Mitchell Vineyards struggled with basic operations, we were pushing the boundaries of modern viticulture. Ms. Mitchell, one of the field supervisors called out, the agricultural science team from UC Davis is here. They're very interested in your sustainable pest control system. This was the kind of recognition I'd always wanted, not Instagram followers or society page mentions, but real respect from industry experts who understood the science behind what we were doing. As I led the university team through our fields, explaining the intricacies of our operation, my phone kept buzzing with messages from home. I ignored them all. Let them see how hard it was to run a winery without understanding the fundamentals. Later that afternoon, I finally checked my messages. 3 from my father, each more desperate than the last. Sarah, we need to talk about these licensing fees. The new system isn't working like it used to. Please just give us a little more time. 2 from Jessica. This is so unfair. You're sabotaging us. Dad's talking about selling part of the property. You have to help. And 1 from Blake, Jessica's fiancé. Hey, any chance you consider consulting for us? Private contract, very generous terms. Jessica doesn't need to know. I deleted them all without responding. They'd made their choice 3 months ago. Now they were living with the consequences. That evening, I sat on the terrace of my new house, overlooking the vineyard as the sun set behind the hills. My phone rang, Margaret Chen again. Sarah, she said when I answered, the board is calling for a vote of no confidence in the current leadership. Jessica's latest proposal involved turning the main production facility into a wine-themed social media experience center. I nearly choked on my wine. A what? Complete with Instagram-worthy photo walls and something called grape therapy sessions. She wants to reduce wine production to focus on experiences. Your father actually supported it. I closed my eyes, imagining our skilled vintners being replaced by social media managers. What's the timeline on the vote? 2 weeks, Margaret replied. But that's not why I'm calling. Remember that private label we discussed? I have 5 investors ready to move forward. They're very impressed with what you're doing at Sonoma. I looked out over my new vineyard, where we just planted special varietals I developed through years of careful cultivation. In 6 months, they would produce grapes unlike anything currently on the market. Send me the details, I said. I think it's time. After hanging up, I opened my laptop to check the daily reports from Sonoma Valley Ventures. Production was up 40% from projections. Our sustainable methods had reduced costs by 35%, and our first wine release was already generating buzz in the industry. A notification popped up, an email from our lawyers. Mitchell Vineyards had filed for an extension on the licensing payments, citing technical difficulties with implementing standard farming methods. I thought about the years I'd spent teaching our workers the precise techniques needed for premium wine production, the careful balance of science and artistry that Jessica had dismissed as too technical. My phone buzzed again, a message from one of our former suppliers. Mitchell Vineyards just tried to order emergency supplies of your patented organic pest control solution. Told them it was proprietary. Their vines aren't looking good. I poured another glass of wine, one from my private reserve. These grapes had been among the last I'd harvested at Mitchell Vineyards, turned into wine using my perfected methods. Soon, I'd be producing something even better. Maya sent over the latest draft of our business plan for the new label. The projections were ambitious but achievable. We focus on quality over quantity, innovation over imitation, substance over style. Everything Mitchell Vineyards could have been if they'd valued the right things. As I reviewed the numbers, another email arrived, an industry newsletter with the headline, Mitchell Vineyards faces production crisis. Sources say quality issues may threaten contracts. I closed my laptop. Success, they say, is the best revenge, but this wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about building something true to my vision, without compromise or interference. The next morning, I had a video call with our international distributors. They were excited about the new techniques we were implementing, the innovative approaches to sustainable wine production. This was what real luxury meant, not pink labels and influencer parties, but uncompromising quality and forward-thinking methods. Ms. Mitchell, our lead distributor, said, "We've had inquiries from several high-end retailers about your upcoming release. The industry is watching what you're doing here." I smiled, thinking of all the times Jessica had dismissed my technical approach to winemaking. Tell them to be patient. What we're creating here is worth the wait. After the call, I walked through the vineyard, checking the new vines. They were thriving, growing stronger every day. Just like me. Emma called with an update. Mitchell Vineyards is requesting a meeting about restructuring the licensing agreement. They're offering equity in exchange for reduced fees. No, I said firmly. The terms stay as they are. They wanted to run things their way. Let them figure it out. They're also asking about your availability for consulting. Apparently, there are some minor issues with their current harvest. I thought about the years I'd spent building Mitchell Vineyards, the countless hours of work and innovation they'd taken for granted. Tell them my consulting rate is $5,000 per hour, with a 20-hour minimum commitment, non-negotiable. Let them realize exactly what they'd lost when they chose style over substance, connections over competence. My phone buzzed with another text from Jessica. "The board is being so mean. They don't understand my vision for the brand. Can't you talk to them?" I didn't respond. Some lessons have to be learned the hard way. Looking out over my new vineyard, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't known in years. Sometimes losing what you thought you wanted leads you to something better. Mitchell Vineyards had been my past. These thriving vines, these innovative methods, this uncompromising pursuit of excellence. This was my future, and it was looking very bright indeed. 1 year later, I stood before a packed audience at the International Wine Innovation Summit, accepting the award for Most Innovative Sustainable Winery. The crystal trophy caught the light as I took the podium, reflecting off the glasses of premium wine set before each guest. Innovation isn't just about new ideas, I said into the microphone. It's about respect for the land, for the process, and for the people who make it all possible. In the audience, I spotted Margaret Chen smiling proudly. Beside her sat representatives from some of the world's most prestigious wine retailers, all of whom now carried my new label, Terra Nova Wines. We had sold out our first release within weeks, and the waiting list for our next vintage was growing daily. After the ceremony, as I chatted with industry leaders and accepted congratulations, my phone buzzed with a familiar number, Mitchell Vineyards. "Sarah," my father's voice was heavy when I answered. "The board voted today. We're selling the vineyard." I had expected this call, though perhaps not so soon. Through my industry contacts, I'd heard about their struggles. Failed harvests, lost contracts, mounting debt. "I see," I said quietly, "and Jessica. She's moved to Los Angeles. Something about starting a wine influencer consulting business." He sighed deeply. "I should have listened to you. I should have valued what you built." "Yes," I agreed simply, "you should have." There was a long pause. "The board, they're entertaining offers. Margaret Chen suggested we talk to you first." Of course she had. We discussed this possibility months ago. "I'll have my team look into it," I said professionally. "Send the details to my office." After hanging up, I stepped onto the conference center balcony. The California sunset painted the sky in shades of purple and gold, reminiscent of our finest wines. Margaret joined me, holding 2 glasses of Terra Nova's signature vintage. "I heard about Mitchell Vineyards," she said, handing me a glass. Quite a turn of events. I smiled, sipping a wine we had created through the perfect balance of innovation and tradition. Life has a way of coming full circle. "Will you buy it?" she asked directly. "Yes," I replied, "but not to reclaim it, to transform it." Those fields have potential that was never fully realized. 2 weeks later, I stood in the old Mitchell Vineyards office, my office once again, but under very different circumstances. The purchase had been straightforward. The board had practically jumped at my offer. I had kept the Mitchell name but added a Terra Nova heritage vineyard beneath it. The past shouldn't be erased, just improved upon. Jessica had sent a surprisingly humble email. "I get it now. I never understood what you built. What it really takes. I'm sorry. Better late than never." My father had asked to stay on as a consultant. I had agreed, but with conditions. This time, he would learn the business from the ground up, starting with the basics he'd never bothered to master. Looking out over the familiar fields, I saw not what had been lost but what could be gained. These vines, combined with our Sonoma operation, would allow us to create something extraordinary. My phone buzzed. Maya had sent the latest soil analysis from our new experimental field in Sonoma. The results were promising. Innovation never stopped after all. A knock at the door interrupted my thoughts. One of our longtime workers, Carlos, stood there with a bottle in his hands. "Miss Mitchell," he said warmly, "we found this in the cellar, from your last harvest here. We saved it for a special occasion." I recognized the bottle, one of the last wines I had crafted before everything changed. Taking it, I read the handwritten label. Mitchell Vineyards Reserve. Sarah's selection. "Perfect timing, Carlos," I said with a smile. "Would you gather the team? I think it's time to toast to new beginnings." As the sun set over the vineyard that evening, surrounded by the people who had believed in me all along, I understood something profound. Success isn't just about proving others wrong, it's about proving yourself right. It's about staying true to your principles, your expertise, your vision. The wine in my glass caught the last rays of sunlight, glowing like liquid gold. A perfect vintage, created through knowledge, innovation, and respect for the craft, just like the legacy I was building now. Sometimes you have to lose your roots to grow something better. And what I was growing now, it was vintage perfection.